Welcome to Fluid Coding and AI. Claude Opus 4.8 is not just a smarter coding model, it is Anthropic pushing coding agents toward budgeted parallel workflow systems, where the real question is not only can it solve the task, but what did it spend to get there? The headline question is simple. Is Opus 4.8 a better coding agent, or just a more expensive one? The answer is both more interesting and more useful. Anthropic improved the model, added effort controls, expanded long-running agent behavior, and introduced dynamic workflows in Claude Code. But the DeepSWE results show the frontier is still messy. Better scores can come with much higher cost, longer runtime, and far more generated tokens. Anthropic introduced Claude Opus 4.8 on May 28, 2026. The model ID is Claude Opus 4.8, and Anthropic describes it as its most capable generally available model at launch. For developers, the important specs are a 1 million token context window by default on Claude API, Amazon Bedrock, and Vertex AI, up to 128,000 output tokens, and regular pricing unchanged from Opus 4.7, $5 per million input tokens, and $25 per million output tokens. The bigger product change is effort control. Opus 4.8 defaults to high effort across Claude API and Claude Code. For harder work, Anthropic recommends extra or X high effort, especially for long-running asynchronous tasks. That matters because quality is no longer hidden behind one vague model name. The effort dial turns model behavior into a budget and latency decision. You can ask for deeper thinking, but you should expect more time, more tokens, and more rate limit pressure. The most underrated part of Opus 4.8 is honesty. Anthropic says the model is around 4 times less likely than Opus 4.7 to let flaws in its own code pass without comment. In the system card, Opus 4.8 gets a perfect score on an evaluation for not uncritically reporting flawed results. On code summary honesty, it failed to surface important flawed transcript events 3.7% of the time, compared with 27.6% for Mythos preview. For coding agents, honesty is not a personality trait. It is operational safety. A model that writes code is useful. A model that tells you the test failed, the feature is incomplete, or the design is unsupported is easier to trust. Anthropic also says Opus 4.8 was the first Claude model to get a perfect score on its lazy investigation evaluation, where Opus 4.7 gave an incorrect answer 25% of the time. Anthropic's own benchmark table is strong. In its system card, Opus 4.8 scores 69.2 on SWE Bench Pro, up from 64.3 for Opus 4.7. It scores 88.6 on SWE Bench Verified, 83.4 on OS World Verified, and 74.6 on Terminal Bench 2.1. That supports the upgrade story. The caveat is that first-party tables are not one unified public harness for every competitor number. DeepSWE is useful because it attacks a different question. Datacurve built it for original, long-horizon engineering tasks across 113 tasks, 91 repositories, and 5 languages: TypeScript, Go, Python, JavaScript, and Rust. All models run through DeepSWE agent with the same bash tool and shared prompt. That makes comparison cleaner, but it also means the benchmark is not measuring Claude Code, Codex CLI, Cursor, or any vendor-native coding harness directly. On DeepSWE, Claude Opus 4.8 clearly improves over Opus 4.7, but it does not run away from the field. At high effort, Opus 4.8 reaches 50.7% pass at 1, with an average cost of $3.98, and an average time of 20.4 minutes. At X high, it reaches 57.7%. At max effort, it reaches 58.2%, with an average cost of $12.58. The public DeepSWE leaderboard retrieved in the research had GPT 5.5x high at the top, around 70% pass at 1, with an average cost of $6.61, Claude Opus 4.8 Max ranked near the top, but its average cost, runtime, and output tokens were much higher in that leaderboard view. The practical comparison may be Opus 4.8 high effort, lower score than Max, but much cheaper and about the same average runtime as the top GPT 5.5 row. Dynamic workflows are the other major shift. In Claude Code, they let Claude plan a task, write orchestration scripts, and run tens to hundreds of parallel sub-agents in one session. Anthropic describes agents that split the work, attempt solutions, refute or verify each other, and fold results back into one answer. This is not about making one agent magically smarter. It is about buying parallel attempts, cross-checks, and longer runtime. The flagship example is the Bun port case study. Anthropic says Jared Sumner used dynamic workflows to port Bun from Zig to Rust, reaching roughly 750,000 lines of Rust, 99.8% of the existing test suite passing, and 11 days from first commit to merge. That is a serious scale demonstration. The caveat matters too. Anthropic said the port was not yet in production at publication time. Opus 4.8 also changes the plumbing around agents. The API supports mid-conversation system messages after a user turn, so an agent harness can update permissions, token budgets, or environment context without rebuilding the whole prompt. Anthropic also points to adaptive thinking with an effort parameter instead of the older fixed extended thinking budget style. For agent builders, that is a sign that model quality, runtime control, and orchestration are being designed together. The caveats are real. Dynamic workflows are a research preview, and Anthropic warns they can consume substantially more tokens than a typical Claude Code session. Enterprise admins can disable them, and the first workflow trigger asks for confirmation. DeepSWE is also not every real codebase. It uses a shared mini-SWE agent harness, covers 5 languages, and does not include every kind of engineering work. Treat it as a strong stress test, not a universal scoreboard. My verdict is that Opus 4.8 is a meaningful coding agent upgrade, especially if you care about honest status reports, long context agent work, and selective high-effort tasks. It is not a reason to turn every issue into a giant multi-agent run. Use lower effort for quick edits. Use high effort as the practical default for serious coding agent work. Reserve X-High, Max, and dynamic workflows for tasks where extra attempts, verification, and runtime can actually pay for themselves. If this breakdown helped you judge where Claude Opus 4.8 actually fits, like the video and subscribe to Fluid Coding and AI for more practical coding agent analysis.